You see, Texas isn't just dirt and cattle. It's a place that watches you back. I'm 87 years old now, and these eyes have seen plenty that logic tries to explain away, but the heart just won't swallow. But that night back in '62, that night changed the way I look at the dark. Back then, I was a young man. Just took over the ranch from my daddy after he passed. The drought was chewing through Potter County like a rusted saw. The cattle were twitchy, and the air. It had a metallic tang to it, like a storm was brewing, but there wasn't a lick of a cloud in the sky. I lived alone in the main house, just me and old Blue, a blue heeler who was sharper than most lawyers I've met in town. Blue never was one to bark at shadows. He was a working dog. But that Tuesday, around 11 at night, he wasn't barking. He was whimpering, a thin, high-pitched sound coming from the back of his throat as he wedged himself under my bed. I whistled for him, called his name, but he wouldn't budge. I grabbed my lantern and stepped out onto the porch. The silence was absolute. In Texas, you always hear something. Crickets, coyotes, the wind moaning through the windmills. But that night, it was like the world had held its breath. And then I heard it. A metallic sound coming from the barn. Click, click, click. Someone or something was messing with the heavy latch I'd welded myself. It wasn't the wind. The wind don't have fingers. The wind don't try to turn a rusted handle with that kind of precision. A shiver crawled up my spine and sat right at the base of my neck. I grabbed the 12 gauge from behind the door and pulled on my boots. I figured it was a drifter, or maybe a cattle rustler. Lord, I wish I'd been right. I walked those 50 yards between the house and the barn with my lantern doused. I knew every inch of that dirt. I could walk it blindfolded. When I got within 30 feet of the main doors, I froze. The moon was full, a white eye staring down from a pitch-black sky. It silhouetted the barn, and there it was. It wasn't a man. It was too tall, taller than any man I'd ever seen, but gaunt, like a carcass left in the sun for months. It stood with its back to me, facing the barn door. What turned my blood to ice wasn't its size, but how it moved. It wasn't trying to break the door down. It was studying the lock. Its fingers, if you could call them that, were long, dark, and moved with a speed that didn't feel earthly. Then the thing stopped. It didn't turn its head like we do. It just rotated its whole torso toward me. I flicked on the lantern. The beam hit that thing dead on. No hair, no clothes. The skin was a pale grey, like cured leather in the dust. But the eyes, I'll never forget those eyes. They didn't reflect the light like an animal's would. They drank it. 2 black holes in the middle of a smooth, featureless face. It made a sound, not a growl. It was a vibration, something I felt in my teeth, a hum that seemed to say I shouldn't be there. I raised the shotgun and hollered for it to clear out. My hands were shaking so bad the barrel was drawing circles in the air. The creature took a step toward me, a long, silent stride. And that's when it spoke. But it didn't use a mouth. I heard my father's voice, the man who'd been in the ground for 2 years, calling my name from inside the barn. "Arthur, open the door, son. It's cold out here." My heart nearly quit. It was him, the exact tone, the same rasp. But my father was dead, and that thing was using his voice like a baited hook. I didn't open that door. I fired. The roar of that 12-gauge tore the night wide open. But when the smoke cleared, there was nothing. No body, no trail of blood. Just the pepper marks of lead shot in the wood of the barn door. I spent the rest of that night sitting on the porch, shotgun across my lap, with Blue shivering at my feet. The next morning, when the sun finally broke, I went down to the barn. There were deep gouge marks in the wood, like steel claws had been looking for a gap. But the strangest thing wasn't the scratches. It was what I found on the ground, right where that thing had been standing. There was a small circle of dirt where nothing has grown since. Even now, 60 years later, that patch of earth behind the barn stays dry and grey. Not a single weed, not a blade of grass. Like the life was just sucked right out of it. Folks tell me it was a heat mirage, or maybe a rabid coyote playing tricks on a tired mind. I just shake my head and smile. They didn't hear the voice. They didn't feel that hum in their bones. What I learned that night, and what I want you to understand, is that this land is old. Much older than our fences and our deeds. There are things that belong to the dark, and our only shield is the courage not to open the door when the past calls out with a voice that ain't its own. I sold most of the ranch 10 years ago, but I kept the barn. Sometimes, on a full moon night, I still hear that click, click, on the latch. But I'm an old man now. I ain't afraid anymore. I just know that Texas keeps secrets that weren't meant to be dug up. If you're ever out on an isolated spread and you hear someone you love calling you from the shadows, don't you answer. Some heritages aren't meant to be claimed. Some doors are meant to stay locked forever.